Welcome to Section 31, episode number 238. I'm Dan Hammond, and I am starting the recording right now so that we can actually put this up later. So, for the audio listeners, I just said, welcome to Section 31, episode number 238. I'm Dan Hammond.
And I'm Rogue Schindler.
Very good. This week, we are going to be recapping a tournament from 2 weeks ago that I came down and delivered stuff to, but spent some time making promos, so I brought in someone else who was here, and that's Charlie Plain, who will be joining us shortly. Rogue, you were there, and we did not have a show last week because you were traveling. Was this for business or pleasure?
This was for, business that led into pleasure, which was nice. That sounded dirty.
Yeah.
But, okay.
Should we be talking about it?
Yeah, no. I went to St. Louis for work for a training, but then I went directly from there to San Francisco this past weekend so that I could be there for the Hall of Fame, Legends, Candlestick Legends farewell to Candlestick Park flag football game, which was pretty impressive, even if you're not a Niners fan, and there were non-fans. There were several Dolphins fans in the crowd, which was pretty entertaining. But Joe Montana and Jerry Rice and Roger Craig and Ronnie Lott and all of these current or future Hall of Famers and just all stars from the dynasty era of the Niners who played in Candlestick Park kind of do a little farewell game. It was pretty awesome.
The Team of the Decade tour?
Yeah, and they played against all-stars from the same era, so like Dan Marino and Tim Brown. And,
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I don't think you will ever see anywhere a three-quarterback flea flicker. I don't think I can possibly describe what it was like seeing Young to Montana to Garcia for the first down.
That seems difficult to defend again.
Yeah. It's like when they ran out, it's like, are all three of the quarterbacks on the field? Because they just got a rotated series, but they would just run out and do stupid shit. They were having a ton of fun. It was really awesome.
All right. Also, last weekend there was a tiny event in Minneapolis. It was actually a large event. I'm looking at the results. They had, well, these are just the championship rounds, so I can't tell how many people. Do you remember how many people they had for 1E at Continentals? Looks like, was it? I need. Oh, so okay, this is what I need for a tournament results page that has the top 4 and the little bracket. I need a link from that to the previous day or heat or whatever, so you can see how many participants there were.
That would be nice.
They talked about it on the forums. Let me.
Yeah.
Look.
I can see 15 names for the triples event, which is awesome. Looks like they did at least 2 or 3 tables, because I see three high scores. Congrats to Nat Kierton for winning.
15 players for first edition NA Continentals with 5 earned buys. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's awesome. And congrats to Kevin Yeager for piloting looks like a Borg deck to the championship. Awesome. I can't complain about that. That's cool. Second place was Bajorans, third was Romulans, and fourth was Cardassians. Those are 2 affiliations I did not expect to see in the top 4.
Cardassians have always been good, and I don't know how much of the new emissary stuff was in that deck. I haven't really looked at the deck list yet, but even without that, they've always been good. I mean, Dominion War Efforts is awesome. They probably have the best free plays to their headquarters. They have access to the Nors, and
they have the most free plays to their headquarters. Last time I did the numbers.
True. So.
Nice. Do you expect people to be taking? I mean, I would expect people to be looking at these decks, picking them apart, because Gen Con's coming in a couple of weeks. Do you think we're going to see a lot of this Borg? I mean, it's a pretty solid build. A lot of A lot of draws, a lot of plays, a lot of flexibility. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, wasn't sure who you're talking to. There's multiple people.
All right. Well, congrats again to Kevin for taking the win in 1E. Looking at the second edition play, the top 8 go from Neil to Nate to Mike, Chris, Kent Tufts, Barry, Nat, and Steve. There's a lot of Romulans represented there as well. Neil's first place deck was Romulan Discard. Charlie, have you looked at that deck that he won with?
I haven't looked at the specific list, but it seems like it's very similar to what he ran last year
Continentals
at
last year.
Continentals. So
that's what I was going to ask.
It's basically I'm going to make you discard a bunch of cards, kill all your people, and then keep you from playing more cards with at an impasse. It's solid. I mean, it's one of those decks that you absolutely have to know what you're doing to an extreme degree to even play. It's not a deck that a casual player could just pick up and run with, but resource denial is always good, and there's been a lot of talk about Romulan domination this year because they've done really well at quite a few of the big events. It's tough to, like, Romulans are one of those affiliations that have just, you can't point to one card and say, that's the broken card.
Do you think the discard build and the denial build is healthy for the game, or do you think it's something that you really can't add to as time goes on because you're just going to make a menace?
That's a great question. I don't have a good answer to. I think there are players that really like that particular style of play, and design should not be in the business of telling players what they can and can't play. And it's in order for a game to be interesting, there needs to be tension. There needs to be ebbs and flows. There needs to be threats and answers. I think a lot of people think that they want the game to be, I play my ship and my people, and you play your ship and your people, and we race to the finish. And I think if the game was that, it would have died a long time ago. It just wouldn't be interesting to people. I think that when you run into a strategy that's of like resource denial, you get a lot of strong emotions. A lot of people are like, I want to play my cards, and I should not be able to play my cards. No offense to my good friend Rogue there, who I know feels that way about certain strategies in the game. But resource denial it can be incredibly frustrating. It can be incredibly rewarding. I think it makes the game better, and I would be sad if it wasn't there. The tricky part as a designer is to balance it, is to make it a threat, but not too easy of a threat, to make it something that you have to be a skillful player to play. If any random new beginning player can play a Romulan discard deck and mill everybody out every game, I think the game would be in trouble. Fortunately, we're not really at that point. So I do think it's a strategy that should be supported. I think it's just a very difficult strategy to implement. And I'll say we cut a whole swath of cards from Project Martha that were a denial strategy simply because we didn't feel like the game state was ready for it right now. So it is something that we're sensitive to. It's not like we're just going to push denial strategies for the sake of pushing them. If they're really good in the current metagame, we probably won't push them. And when they swing the other way to, it's speed solvers all over the place and nothing else, you can push denial a little bit again and swing the pendulum. I answered that very cyclically, but I think it's an important. I think it's an important thing for a CCG to have. Any game, the ability to any game with resources, there has to be a threat to those resources to make the game better, to make the game more testing, more challenging. The difficult line is to walk that sweet spot where this resource denial is a threat, but it's not taking away all the fun.
That's tough because keeping players from playing the game, which is pretty much what resource denial ends up being, is hard to. It's hard to come back to after you've lost to it horribly. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, congrats to Neil for. I'm sure there were no one was really surprised that he showed up, but congrats to Neil for flying in and taking first, and congrats to Nate for taking second. Awesome work there. Well, can we claim him as a local? I don't know.
Well,
so.
he is a local. He just doesn't come to any of our events.
All right. And I talked about tribbles. Congrats to Nat. You know what I was impressed with Nat's deck? I'm looking at the list, and there's 3 of these, and 3 of these, and 4 of these, and 3 of these, and 2 of those, and 4 of these. I guess there's more. I guess there's 9 poison cards out of 56, but there's no. There's also 8 replays, and which goes pretty well with poison, I guess. But it's not a dedicated poison deck. There's a lot of weird stuff in there, like sabotage, and a couple of Masakas, and some goes, and replays, and tallies, and a lot of weird stuff. So I like that it's not a dedicated just one thing deck, kind of a general, just fun, which is the way I like to play. So that's good to see. I like that.
Nice.
And 2nd through 5th, come on, post your deck. I want to see what happened. All right. Let's close that out and talk about our local event that happened 2 weeks ago. Did you guys end up playing each other in the event? Because did we go round robin? I don't remember.
We didn't, and I think
not.
Rogue and I were the only ones that didn't play.
Correct.
Rogue was the only person that I didn't play on the day. So.
All right. Well, let's start with Charlie. What did you think about building, and what did you actually build, and how close to was it happening? How close to the deck did the deck do to what you were expecting?
It was our Maquis release event, and I really wanted to try something the Maquis. The biggest concern that I had was going to be shared missions. I'm not a good enough 1E player to properly play around that, and every time I play in a game where there's shared missions, I always get stopped by the last dilemma. So I clear out 5 of the 6 dilemmas, and my opponent walks over and takes it, and that is not fun. So I wanted to play a Maquis deck that would avoid shared dilemmas. So I thought maybe Voyager would have the best chance of not duplicating. And then I remembered that there is a Mirror Quadrant Badlands mission, and I took a look at the card, and it doesn't care about what quadrant you report in. It just says your Badlands planet. So I was like, well, that's interesting. So maybe I'll try Maquis in the Mirror Quadrant. So the original idea was just put in the Mirror Quadrant planet, put in the 3 Mirror Quadrant planets, put in an Alpha Badlands planet that I had no intention of solving, just to use the transport device to get back and forth, and then 2 space missions, and just go to town. Well, then I was thinking, if I'm going to min-max the reporting, so it originally was just Maquis, and then I decided, well, if I'm going to be playing mirror stuff, I might as well put in the mirror people, because the headquarters is right there on the same planet, so I can basically get all my free plays to the same place, which is nice, especially in the Mirror Quadrant where you've only got 4 locations on the space line if you count the wormhole. So mobility wasn't a terrible issue. So I put in the mirror people. I went with all DS9, except I put in a Tuvok and a Ro Laren for late game plays, just to have their skills and their download. The only reason I was using Reshape the Quadrant, I didn't use, the only Maquis play engine I used was, they call themselves the Maquis. I could have gone to the DS9 one, but then it wouldn't have worked really anyway because the Mirror, Terrak Nor, and Terran Hideout are not Maquis facilities, so it would have not have given me the free play anyway. But I did want it for We Need You Here, so I could ops download Mirror people without having to take the card loss, which came into play a few times. It was actually really nice. Getting the extra sites and ops downloading a skill I needed to pass a wall was actually really, really powerful. The deck was pretty fun. It was kind of neat hopping. I would hop to the Alpha Quadrant and fly on a ship to the Bajoran region and then hop back to the Mirror Quadrant. I was using Process Ore to get extra card drawing. And because in the Mirror Terrak Nor, it's immune to Reactor Overlords, we didn't have to really worry about that. It was fun. I did kind of screw up in that I put the same mission persona in my deck twice, which is something that we have to be mindful of. I'm hoping we can do some programming on the deck builder side to sort of catch that. But that that is a strong reason for design to minimize doing that as much as possible, because I just picked 2 planets that look different and put them in, and then in the second game, JD played a mission that was the same persona as mine, and he overlapped them, and I'm like, crap, my deck's illegal. So I technically lost all of my games because I had an illegal deck, but it was fine. I think there's some potential in that combo, the Mirror people and the Maquis people. You get the ability to attack if you leave your Mirror people by themselves, and then if they counterattack you, now your Maquis people can attack freely.
That's nice. They're
all fed and non-aligned, so they all mix. You don't have to do any treaty or craziness that way. I don't know how much use I got out of Mirror Terrak Nor. I probably could have done more with that. I'm not great. I should really just pick Rogue's Brain on that stuff. It was fun. Oh, the other cheesy thing that I did, Johnny gave me a demerit. I said once I was all in on the Badlands and the Maquis, I just went 6 planets. I just said, screw it, I'm not going to deal with doing a space mission. I just put 6 planets in and could pretty easily get to 140 points with off-Zel Vase, and the last thing I added was nano-biogenic, with the Harvester people, which you can grab with Reshape the Quadrant because it's a Warp Core card, the Harvester Virus crew, because you can solve that mission and then get an extra 10 points. So you can end up with 140 pretty easily doing just 4 missions. And none of those missions are terrible, and presumably at least one of those missions you're going to run into misseeds
Sure.
from your dilemmas. So it's really like 3 was the thought. It was a fun deck. I don't think it played terribly well. Thomas had a genius deck that was really fun to watch. Johnny was playing, I think, TNG Feds. JD was also playing Maquis. Yeah. And it was a good tournament for the most part. I mean, I made some frustrating mistakes, but it was a new deck. I didn't use as many of the new dilemmas as I would have liked to. I really wanted to do some shenanigans with kill half your universals and dilemmas that pushed you into going with more universal people. But it was fun. I think the set's good, and it was interesting to build a new, different kind of deck. And I wish I'd had more time to really work on it and test and play with it before the tournament, but I'll put that on the back burner and bring that out again later.
Yeah, bring it to one of the fun events at Gen Con.
There you go.
Rogue, what were you doing? Were you trying to play Maquis as well?
I did play Maquis. I wanted to try the new stuff out since it was a release event. I had actually had a similar line of thinking in that I wanted to avoid doing the same thing as somebody, so we would have less duplication. And so I was like, well, what's the least likely of these that somebody is going to try? Probably the Voyager. So I'll start working on that. And got most of the way through that, and then we talked about it the week before, and you're like, yeah, I'm probably going to play Voyager Maquis. So I dumped that. And then I had actually, Charlie was right. I've been waiting ever since Athos came out for the new 1E Voyager to come out, because it really made it look like Athos was going to be the Maquis homeworld. I know we talked about that a little bit already. That was in some iteration that was a plan, and I had really looking forward to using the Mirror Quadrant guys and the Maquis and bouncing back and forth between the two homeworlds. Obviously, it ended up not really mattering for the reporting, because you can still kind of report anywhere. But I didn't want to. I did weird mirror stuff for the Emissary release, so I wanted to try and do just a straight Maquis for this release. And I still, looking at my deck, it looks like it should be fine, and I mean, I still feel like it should be fine, but I had a really terrible day of it on the tournament, so I don't know, I had a combination of bad matchups and really, really bad luck, so I did not do very well. But I mean, we got to see several iterations of the Maquis on the day, and it still looks like it could be pretty fun. I don't think this is really... it's hard to make the release event a representative tournament for those.
Yeah, we had 5 players, and the bottom 3 places were Maquis, 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 and
Yeah.
first place was OTF Enterprise E, and second place was DS9 Cardassian
Yeah.
Cargo Run.
Well, I mean, it's also.
I call...
I mean, part of that is like, it's Johnny and Thomas on the top, and
Fair enough.
True.
Probably our best 3 players are Johnny, Thomas, Rogue. So seeing Johnny and Thomas on the top isn't like, I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, the Maquis are terrible because they're on the bottom. I mean,
Well, and I call shenanigans on Johnny for giving you a demerit, since he was totally janking the system with his not a free play. I mean, that was a hilarious deck to watch until it was really good, and my ship blew up and I got to do nothing the whole game.
yeah.
It was a really ingenious deck. I don't know if he put that together or if he found it somewhere else, but the apparently the Zephram Cochrane Memorial, if you get one of the probes lets you play a card, which does not count as a free play because it just says play a card. But I don't know what kind of play it is if it's not a free play and it's not your regular play. But that apparently does not trigger as a free play for new arrivals. So he was using new arrivals as another engine to start off with card drawing, and that made a huge difference.
Can I just say, it entertains me to no end what people will complain about when a set comes out versus what they complain about 6 months after a set is out. I mean, there were pages and pages and pages and pages about how terrible New Arrivals was when Emissary came out, and it's in a lot of decks. And a lot of people have changed their tune on that card, and it's interesting. I mean, I'm not begrudging anybody for having an opinion and voicing that opinion. I strongly encourage that always, but it entertains me to know, and it happened on the 2E side too when we put Return to Grace out. It's like, well, I guess it's the year of Bajorans, and guess not. So anyway, it just entertained me.
Well, on the day, it was an entertaining watch just to see all the people playing all the Maquis cards, because there were Maquis cards on every table pretty much, so that was fun. I had a good time even though I wasn't playing, walking around and seeing the cards being played. And we got a lot of cards made and a lot of kits made up the next day, so that's where most of those promos came from. We also had a little promo gathering party last weekend. You know what we didn't do, Charlie? That we do it every other promo making card.
Play triples?
We didn't play triples at all.
How could you not play triples?
Well, we got started late.
Yeah,
but.
And we went late. We got a lot done though. Those new promos look really nice, so those should be going out soon.
Excellent.
Very good. There were tribbles, yes, after the tournament.
Yes. We played
Sure, I'm
Tribbles.
sure there had to have been.
And Rogue, yes, there was, because Rogue had the epic string of 100,000s at the end to come up ahead of
Oh, that's right.
and win the table.
I was at.
Looking,
That's right. I was at 111,111 at the end of round 4, and somebody was like, "Just stop." I was like, I'm not sandbagging just to get the achievement. My name is not redacted.
why does it say that the Tribbles results aren't in yet? I remember putting them in.
Yeah, I have no memory of what happened there. So because I
Well,
wasn't.
Rogue won with like 800,000 Tribbles, but for whatever reason it says they didn't get entered, and I'm not sure I still have the sheet, so we'll have to figure that out.
I had 799,000 tribbles, so you can put that down when you're remembering.
Uh-huh.
Very good. All right. Are either of you going to be playing in the late night tribble events at Gen Con every night at like 10:15?
I don't know about every night, but I'm sure I'll make one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I got to print out much more decks.
I plan on playing in a couple. It will depend largely on needs for sleep and other what else, how much work. My plan is to not have to do as much work as I did last year because the volunteers will be covering all their events.
Isn't that your plan every year?
It is, and it never goes that well. But I'm going a day early this year. I'm flying into Indy. I found a really good deal on a flight, $300 round trip.
Nice.
And I'm leaving Monday night late and getting there Tuesday morning early. So I'll have all day Tuesday to get everything unpacked, sorted out, taken care of. Wednesday I can go over as soon as they start will calling, get the GM badges, and then just hang out all day and get people checked in and use the rest of the day Wednesday to finish the rest of the prep. We'll have a volunteer meeting in the afternoon. We're running some Wednesday night events, and then jump right in on Thursday, and then I can just run my big events, and hopefully all the side events will be squared away, and relax afterwards. Play Troubles. We go over to the restaurant in the hotel and eat some dinner, have a drink or two.
Is there a playtest this year, or is that secret?
I don't think we're going to do one this year. The timing didn't work out, although I do. I haven't made the announcement on the forums yet, but we will be doing a playtest of Infinite Diversity 1.1, for lack of a better term. Earlier this year, I tasked one of our designers, Tyler Foltz, and some of his local playgroup or Big Draft fans with fixing draft. We did some surveys on the forums. We had a lot of internal behind-the-scenes data. There were a lot of complaints about the card pool and the rules and how the draft worked. So they have put together not a new thing. It's still Infinite Diversity, but they've scrubbed the card pools. They've changed the way the card packs are generated. They've simplified the complexity of the cards, so you won't be pulling eight-line dilemmas out of your packs for Infinite Diversity anymore. So you don't have 8 lines of text to read times 9 every time you're trying to draft a pack. So there's going to be a test run of that on Saturday. There's a sealed deck event on Saturday that's going to be draft instead, but it'll be playtest draft, and everybody will be given the opportunity to give us some feedback at the end of it, and we'll have a little something special for everybody who plays in that. And then hopefully if it goes well, or if it doesn't go well, we'll go back to the drawing board, and then we'll have Infinite Diversity, 2 or 1.1 or whatever you want to call it, out later in the year, early next year for people to use. It doesn't solve the problem of having to print out and cut out, a bunch of cards, but it will hopefully make it more fun and playable for people all around the world. So.
It's nice that we can iterate. We have a process in place that we can take a look at the pool and put some red flags on cards that just shouldn't be there, or
yeah,
take a look around and see what we can add.
Once that technology is rolled out, it'll be a lot easier to make new draft pools. You'll even be able to make custom draft pools. Like you can pick whatever 4 affiliations you want in your pod, and it's now pulling from everything.
Right. So
Because everything's printable now.
Last time we put together a pool, it was only virtual cards, right? So now it's anything and anyone.
Now it's anything, but a lot of cards are excluded for complexity reasons. And I'm pretty sure. Again, I don't want to speak for Tyler, and I don't want to get too nitty gritty, but they did a rarity in the virtual packs. So there are cards that will show up more often and cards that will show up less often across all of the packs in the pool, which is good. So you can push the more complex cards up to less frequent. The more complex but still attractive cards in draft up higher in the pool, and keep their frequency down. Whereas before it was literally just every card can show up.
Right.
So, should be fun. I think that's going to be Saturday afternoon. So unless you're in the day 2 of TUI, come out and give that a try. So.
Sounds good. Do we have any other business we want to talk about?
I have a thing, but
Rogue, do you have anything
if you want
we
to
get
talk
to
about
the
it?
thing that Charlie's dangling in front of us?
No, sure. Let's see the thing. It's clobber'n time.
I don't have art to show you yet, but I have a spoiler for TUI for Project Martha. It has a name. I don't even actually have permission to do this spoiler, but I'm doing it anyway. I won't tell you the name yet. I will tell you that it is a episode title that has almost nothing to do with any of the storylines in the expansion itself.
Sub Rosa.
Oh God. I don't ever. At some point, we're going to go back and make cards titled after the expansion, since we stopped doing that, and I never want to make a card called Sub Rosa ever. So.
Naja Troy.
So I'm going to spoil for you what would be 31v45, if I'm doing my math correctly.
I like the set number.
I think it's 31.
Yes, indeed. Promises to be an excellent set.
Yes. This is a set that is going to be interesting. It's the Return to Grace treatment for Terok Nor and DS9 Earth. So the same type of cards you saw for Bajorans and Cardassians in Return to Grace, you're going to see for those two. Although there's much more innovation in Martha than there was in Return to Grace, because Terok Nor and DS9 Earth needed more definition, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like, Bajorans had a pretty strong identity of what they do. You know, they manipulate the discard pile. They're super honorable. They do ground combat. Cardassians, again, we're wasteful, and we can get an immediate advantage at a long-term cost. And I'm really blurry. Why am I blurry?
Because you're drinking too much.
And they capture. Terok Nor is like, okay, we play Ruling Council, and we 2-mission win, and that was very limiting. We didn't like that as a definition. DS9 Earth was sort of play the best Earth people and play the best DS9 people. You know, I mean, they sort of had like Jarashinyo and Promenade School and an integrity build that then got smacked around by Insurrection a lot. So we were definitely looking for more. What identity do we want to give these two factions moving forward? So there's more innovation, I will say, in Martha than there was in Return to Grace, but the concept and the power level of Phase 2 continues into Martha.
All right. Well, that's interesting. So since they were a little more undefined, did you sit down and codify what you had in mind?
Oh, so it took Terok Nor we figured out pretty quick. It took months to get DS9 Earth to a place where we were like, I guess we're happy with this. And then eventually it clicked to the point where we liked it. But it was, I mean, DS9, and in hindsight, if I had thought about it from a project management standpoint, I would not have put these two this early in the Phase 2 process, because they're some of the more complicated affiliations to be defined. I mean, look at Terok Nor. Terok Nor has to have a Bajoran element a Cardassian element and a Dominion element, plus its own, and it has to have its own definition.
Don't forget the Ferengi.
And the Ferengi. DS9 Earth has to represent the Federation as a whole. It has to represent DS9 Feds, but in a way that's different from Mouth of the Wormhole. It has to represent Earth as a whole. There's just lots of, if you make a Venn diagram, these are two of the affiliations that are the most complicated overlaps. And to figuring out, what does the Federation mean? Because we want, if you're sitting down and playing blue, we want there to be some high-level similarity between all the different shades of blue. If you're playing TOS versus TNG versus DS9 versus Voyager, there should be some thread that runs through all of them that define them as Federation, other than the fact that they're blue cards. Figuring out what that was took a lot of time. And then, what does the, DS9 dot on a Fed guy mean? I'll say this. One of the things we decided early on is that DS9 Earth gets no access to the discard pile. None. Because the Bajorans give you access to the discard pile, and mixing the Bajorans with the DS9 Federations is a defining characteristic of Mouth of the Wormhole. So to make Mouth of the Wormhole versus DS9 Earth different, that's one thing that can be different. If at Mouth of the Wormhole you can get Bajorans, so you can get into the discard pile stuff. At Earth, we need to not have that be a defining characteristic. So one of their things early was like, okay, they get nothing out of the discard pile, which was actually interesting, because when you take away something, it makes you think outside the box and do more interesting things. So yeah, these were very complicated affiliations to sort of figure out. And Earth, I'm sure we'll do an article on it, but Earth went through a lot of different concepts and revisions, and somebody on the team was always unhappy with where it was, and eventually we got to a place where we were all kind of on board, and then we just we took it to play testing, and it shook out pretty nicely. So I'm excited to see how it.
Before we get our spoiler, you say, without giving obviously dates, at what point is this set in the process flow?
Well, it's done. It's done through creative, but I just found out we have some technical difficulties on our art side. I don't have any sort of timeline for moving forward with this. Hopefully that's something we can work out quickly. But for right now, I can't give you a better answer. Nick is working. Nick, our brand manager, Nick Yankovic, and we had a meeting this weekend, and it's kind of in the hands of it's moving towards release. It's closer to release than not. How about that? That's
Okay.
the best answer I can give you.
Right. So you were going to give us 31V what?
31V45. This is a non-aligned card because I don't want to show off any of the Earth stuff or the Terragnor stuff yet.
All right.
This is the second version of this character in... I should check that before I said that, because somebody's going to call me out on it if I lied. This is the second version of Morn. So we have a new Morn in Project Martha. Yeah, I don't have a picture to show you, so I won't bother sharing my screen or anything. So let me tell you about this Morn. He's a non-aligned. He's 3-cost. Lurian Command Star. His subtitle is Silent Partner, and his lore is ... which Matt does love his puns. Let's see. He is biology, engineer, honor, navigation, and security, which is one more skill than his previous version, although 3 of them are the same. He lost acquisition and gained honor and security. Versus his old version, he is a dissident and a smuggler. So the original Morn was smuggler and thief. This is dissident and smuggler. This Morn says, at the start of your turn, if this personnel and your other dissident are at Mouth of the Wormhole, each opponent discards the top card of his or her deck.
So sort of an opposite.
Yes, the original Morn is at the start of each of your turns. If this personnel and your other smuggler or thief are at mouth of the wormhole, you may draw a card. This is sort of the dissident turn on his head version. The story for this Morn is when he was going to see his mom, and so could get out of space. So the dissidents used him to smuggle a message to Cisco and crew. So he's a dissident because he's helping them, and he's still a smuggler because he's still Morn, and he's smuggling a message out of Dominion territory. So yeah, in a Terok Nor deck, if you're playing dissidents, you play this, and he's not aligned. He doesn't have the Terok Nor icon or anything, but he's not aligned, so he plays the Terok Nor. You play him, you play another guy, and every turn you ping your opponent for 1. So he is fun. His stat line is Integrity 6, Cunning 6, and Strength 5, and I believe that's 1 more Integrity and 1 less Cunning than his previous version.
That sounds about right.
So yeah.
Did he have a command star in the first version?
Yes.
Yes, he has the command star in this version as well. So. Morn is not exactly a character that goes through great depths of transformation. So he kept most of the same skills. His stats we tweaked a little to fit the dissident deck a little better. But he's good in any deck, and there are non-aligned dissidents. So really, you could throw Morn in any Vulcan in any deck except Borg and New Bajoran and mill a deck every turn. And I mean, really, over the course of a game, you're talking 8 to 10 cards, assuming you get this set up on turn 1. So it's not. This is the type of resource denial that it's slow and steady, and you can't speed it up, and it's not gonna make a huge impact unless the opponent gets really unlucky about what they're milling off.
If you pair it up with things like Jake and other things that you could use to.
Sure, in a dedicated dissident deck, he's simply fuel for the fire, but that's fine. That's that strategy you have to devote to it, and he's not super splashable outside that deck, although technically he is. So if you're playing Romulan discard and you want to put Morn and a couple Vulcans in to get an extra mill every turn, that's great. It's fine with me. I mean, it's one of those abilities that it's right on the edge of what non-aligned should be able to do. Like almost any deck can do a little bit of discard, but since this is key to dissidents, a little more. It takes it from to okay. You've got to at least invest on 2 cards to make this work. So, and there are answers to that. I can disconcerting displacement Morn into a mission attempt, so this doesn't work anymore. So. And he does have to be at mouth of the wormhole to do it. So even if you're playing Romulan, you've got to go to headquarters. So
just don't go make a mouth of the wormhole attemptable mission like Earth.
It was discussed, and there are a couple of cards that would break that. So we did not do it. So, but it was discussed. The 20-point space mission in Return to Grace was mouth of the wormhole for a while. But yeah, there's a couple of cards that would break if there was a mouth of the wormhole that wasn't headquarters. So.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, thank you for that. Little preview into Martha. Something to plan around, I guess, or play without. In our upcoming tournament, we have a 2E tournament coming up this weekend.
That's right.
So if you're planning on playing Discard Dissidents, you might want to wait.
I'll say this: we made a whole bunch of cards for that because it seemed like this was the place to put it thematically. If you're making a Terok Nor, but it's like A, decks are really big right now, and B, it wasn't the right time to bring back a mill deck. A crazy powerful mill deck wasn't the right thing to bring back right now. So they didn't make the cut, but Morn's good. Morn stuck around. He's a survivor. So.
To hear him tell it, sure he is. All right. Shall we wrap this then?
I believe so. We have, as I mentioned, coming up, we have a tournament, a 2E tournament on Saturday. We've got Comic-Con in 2 weeks, so we'll definitely come back and have reports for you on both of those things. In the meantime, I am Zerogue.
I'm Sir Dan. Excuse me.
And I'll thank Charlie for coming out and joining us before saying that everybody should remember to expand their power in the universe.
And I will draw and take a nap.